Hey everyone, this is Elias from Red Match Media. Today we are going to be test driving the Alfa Romeo Stelvio TI Sport all-wheel drive. Now that's a long name, but this also has a long list of some of my favorite things. Let's go ahead and get started. Now we take a look at the front, and it's definitely iconic to the Alfa Romeo design. We have its triangle shape there, which is great, and it resembles a lot of the Giulia. But again, obviously from here on back, it's a different SUV. It's actually a SUV. But yeah, we have the nice big swooping headlight here, and they work well, nice and bright. And we have the big opening here to really cool the engine down because this is a turbocharged 2.0, which we'll get into. But we also have the little radar option down there, which is great for the lane assist, keeping, just keeping you in your lane, so to speak. It works really well in this. So definitely, a great front end and some great features that are needed for this. And yeah, let's look under the hood. Now it's time to look under the hood of the Alfa, and we take a look at it, and there's a lot of space. It's almost as if you can fit a V6 turbo engine in here. But in this case, we're dealing with the 2.0 liter inline 4 turbocharged 280 horsepower, connected to an 8-speed automatic, and then connected to an all-wheel drive system. So that's what the TI Sport has, or at least this one does. And the power output feels great, but sometimes was weird. So I was driving in some of our hill country here, and it felt weird because it felt as if there were holes in the power band, like little dips. It's kind of weird to explain, but that's the feeling that I got. But that's, I think, the best way to kind of describe it. So it definitely felt like there were little holes, but it was just that one time, because when we took it out again to just kind of drive it and a little bit more, spirited driving, so to speak, it was acting kind of fine. It was acting fine. It didn't feel any different than any normal car would, but it was kind of that weird time that we had driving it into hill country. But yeah, it's a big area here, and I can see we have a nice big brace here to really stabilize, and I'm sure, with having such a big open area, it's going to help out, and it does feel very stiff in performance, in a performance way. So it definitely felt, I'm sure this guy is helping a lot. But yeah, the power band, other than that, is pretty good. The transmission is great as well. If you're in the D mode, which is like the race mode, when you're going through the gears, it's like it dumps. Think of it as an manual that just, you're just dumping the clutch. It's just grabbing. It's just, wanting to go to the next gear, next gear, next gear. So that was awesome to feel. The paddle shifters, we'll talk about that in a little bit once we go for a drive. But yeah, overall, it looks like there's a lot of space, and you can see the turbocharger is, right there, very easy to get to, which is always my concern with turbocharged cars. What's the longevity? How long is that turbo gonna last? That's an added expense. And sometimes it's not just the turbo that can be pricey, but the maintenance. But having it right there, or the replacement, the labor, but having it right there looks fairly easy to get to, or for you to do yourself. Other than that though, everything seems to be fairly spaced out. Like I said, it's almost as if you can fit a V6 in this. Let's go ahead and take a look at the wheels. Coming to the wheels, we have the 20-inch option on this. So there are different wheels that you can choose. What's great about Alfa's kind of packages is you choose one, but there's just so many different options available. When you choose a package, there's a bunch of items that come with it. And it's not like some other manufacturers that they give you literally a little itemized, you know, they charge you for one little thing, another little thing, and so on. So these packages are really thought out, and I think they work really well. And with this one, we have these 20-inch wheels, which are nice in the black color, that have a nice contrast to the white of the Alfa itself. And they work well. They're wrapped in the Continental 255 45 tire. And there's a lot of grip to this. There's a lot of grip, not a lot of noise, which was great, especially with a big tire like this. So not a lot of noise. The grip is there, working with the all-wheel drive system, working with the traction control, which you can't turn off. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, it works really well. The steering input feels great as well. And then part of a package as well are the red brakes. So they're a must. They're definitely a must with something like an Alfa. They really stand out and they look great. You know, they're nice and big as well. And the pedal feel on this as well has been exceptional. So definitely a great package to opt in for. We take a look at the side and we can see it's obviously an SUV, but it sits low. It definitely sits a little bit on the sportier side. With that being said, you may not want to take this guy off-roading, even though I'm pretty sure it is with the all-wheel capable with the all-wheel drive system. But you may want to be careful with the carbon fiber drive shaft. Yes, this actually has a carbon fiber drive shaft, which is pretty amazing. But you know, when you're dealing with the TI Sport, we're gonna get some great little things that are gonna set it off a little bit. Is a lot of black accents. So having the windows, you know, the frame be black, that's part of the TI Sport. Also the roof bars as well are gonna be black. And I think it's those subtle little things, but really set it apart and give it that additional look to it. And again, it looks and sits really nice. This is definitely a nice design aspect to it. Now let's go ahead and head to the back because there's a lot of cool little things with the trunk in this SUV. We come to the back and we get to enjoy a little bit of more Italian Alfa Romeo styling. These taillights, again, with their swooping design, nice look to it. And one of my favorite things about this, and again, we're gonna have a long list of favorite things with this Alfa, is the black exhaust tips. So awesome. It's one of the things, the aluminum ones are great. Titanium is really the best, but it's definitely on the pricier side. But if it comes to kind of a balance in between, black exhaust tips are definitely one of my favorite things. And they look so nice in this, especially again with the contrasting white. Now, when we come to the back, with the Alfa, we have a couple of cool things that it can do with the key fob. So obviously you press it twice and it can open up on its own. So nowadays with curbside pickup, or if you're wanting to load anything yourself, just a matter of pressing it twice. You don't have to really do anything fancier than that. So you have that option, and you can see this has a lot of space to begin with. And one of my favorite things is there's kind of this wedge feeling to it. So you can definitely have a large space. So it's not just kind of like a square, but there's just this little bit of extra that can make or break your trip, really, you know, if you're needing to haul things. So there is a ton of space. There's some great tie downs right in here that you can just reposition anywhere you want. So that's good if you're needing to, you know, have things locked down so they don't move in there. Now it is open, but you can just matter of grabbing this and setting it in there so that it can, you know, cover up once you bring this down. And there's another cover up here to make sure everything is out of sight. Now, a couple of things in this that I love as well is we have some seat kind of latches here. So when you do this, it actually unhinges the the back seat, so you are able to push them forward, so they lean forward, and you just gained an additional amount of space. It's great because sometimes, you know, if you're lugging things and you don't want to have to go into the passenger side, kind of look for that button on top, which can sometimes be difficult to kind of maneuver, especially if it's one of those things if you don't do it a lot, you kind of forget how the mechanism works for your car. So having this is definitely a great little thing. Just a matter of doing that and push them through and you're good to go. So tons and tons of space in this. And again, once you're done, you can either press this button to close it. You can use the key fob to close it, which is great. The range was actually pretty good on this, as well as you have the button in the front. So if you're driving curbside pickup, just a matter of pushing the button, opens up. They don't have to touch it, just a matter of pushing it down and you're good to go. Now, my other favorite thing about this, you know I'm a sucker for remote starts. So just 2 buttons, 2 times, and beeps a couple of times, and then we hear it. Now, it may not be V8 roaring sound, but we'll take this on the side of convenience, in the sense that, especially now, it is super hot. I want to say it's like 94 degrees right now, literally, which is why I'm like super hot. But this is nice, especially if you have a kid. Let the car cool down, or when we get our 3 days of winter in Austin and we get snow, you know, you can have it warm up as well. So it's a nice, it's something that can get overlooked by some manufacturers, but it's definitely a great little feature to have to make sure you don't put your kiddos in too hot of a car when you have to go, or too cold of a car when you also have to go. Now, let's go inside and go for a ride. Coming inside, we'll take a look at soon the red seats, but I wanted to show you something, and that is the sunroof, or the big panoramic roof. It's definitely a big opening, like we're seeing nowadays, which is good. So you have kind of that, you can open up the window as well, the actual sunroof, so it is an open air, and yeah, so the opening itself is not too big, but you can see that when you close it, I'll just close that, but the shade goes even further back. Okay, so you have that option, and you also have the tilt function as well, so you can see a tiny little bit of a sliver there to get that set. Oh, sorry, wrong button. There's a couple of them. So yeah, so you have that, and you have the shade, and yeah, this is a nice big panoramic roof and with a sunroof. So that's that. The Harman Kardon system. This system is great. If you have the money, definitely get this. It's a nice, clear, loud sounding system, like Harman Kardon always is. So definitely the system you want to get, and it not only sounds good, but it looks great as well. So don't forget to check that one on for your options. We get inside of the Stelvio, and it, I mean, immediately you're at a party or a fancy party, and you see the lady in red. You see the lady in the red dress, and that's what the Stelvio is. It is the lady in red when you get inside, because this thing has a lot of red in it. So let's get started. So kind of sitting in the seats, you know, they look nice. They're nice and high bolsters on the side, and red leather. I mean, you can't miss it. It's all kind of obvious. So it's red leather. Couple of things. The headrest is probably one of the most comfortable headrests I've dealt with. Usually I'm just kind of like, you know, kind of off of it, and to just kind of be alert. It's kind of like when you're playing video games and you're kind of relaxed, but then you just kind of lean forward a little bit to be better. that's how I usually sit. I kind of usually sit like this, but with this, I saw myself just kind of sitting back and relaxing because it's such a small thing, but it's such a soft, plush headrest. It's silly for me to be talking about that so long, but it really is. So we have the plush headrest, but when we come to this, my sides are being really hugged. So if you're a bigger guy, this might be a little tough to get comfortable in, but I mean, it's telling me something. Yes, I have to definitely hit the gym or, start getting more physically active. And having this is definitely gonna want to get me there, to go to wherever I need to go to get physically active. But overall, I mean, besides that, it's a fairly comfortable seat. You do have the option of adjusting the bolsters. Now, even if you, even at the max opening or the max width, it's still a little snug. But when you really want to take those turns, you can really have it squeeze you, and it gets really small. It's a tiny little button on the side. So that's good there. And then we have, your normal seat settings, and it does the job of getting you positioned. I do feel a little high though. I usually like to sit fairly low in my cars, but it does feel a little on the higher side, which can be, I guess, a good thing, because it does kind of, you feel, I guess your head feels more of the swaying of the taller SUV. So we have that's the seat. And again, the door panel is just beautiful. We have this red leather on it. We have the black leather on top. The red stitching is always a plus, always welcomed. And we have the 3 seats, 3 settings. So this is definitely a family vehicle, or a functional family vehicle, that you can really, have it for everyone. Everyone can just get in this and go. So we have that. And we have the Harman Kardon, which we'll talk about in a bit. But we get to their steering wheel, and I like this steering wheel. This steering wheel works really, really well. The contours of where my thumbs fit is so good. It's so good, and it has this like dimpled leather there. So it definitely gives you a great texture to feel. Weird, but yeah, it's a great texture to feel there. Not weird, but it's, you're talking steering wheels and textures. But yeah, it definitely has a great texture to it, and it's not just where your thumbs lie and your hands grip it, but the back as well has that dimpled leather to it. It wraps around, and it feels so good. I love this. This has been one of those things where I've just been kind of like moving my fingers across it, because it's done so well. On the left hand side of the wheel, you have the cruise control settings, which are fairly simple to use. You just press them, and nothing too complicated, which is good in an Italian car. So it's definitely a great little feature there. And then we have the ever escaping start stop button in this car. And I say ever escaping because I keep forgetting it's not on the dash, it's not in the center console, it's on the wheel. So I sit in here and I'm thinking, okay, I know I don't have to put in the key, I know I don't have to, because it's a key fob, and I'm just like, oh, okay, so where is it? And I'm just like, where is it? I'm like, oh, that's right, I keep having to come back to it. So yes, it's in the steering wheel, which is kind of nice. Once you remember it. And having to switch from vehicles to vehicles, it's always a nice little fun game. And then on the right is probably one of my favorite things about this wheel, is the volume control. So obviously we have your talk buttons, things like that, but the volume control, it's a little knob. It's a little knob that goes up and down, and the feel is so nice. It has such a good tactile feel, like you can feel the clicks, which is nice. You're going up and down on the volume, that's great. And then the next volume track and previous volume track, previous track and next track buttons are very well placed. literally my thumbs can fall right on it, which is great. I can switch between there. I'm not having to do a thumb war, so to speak. Typically, I love the FCA back buttons, but with this SUV, it's a little bit different, and I'll trade in those volume buttons in the back for what we have in this one. We have column paddle shifters. So column mounted paddle shifters. These things are so good. This is my favorite. I keep saying all these favorite things, but this is by far my favorite thing about this. Yeah, obviously besides the red leather, the the look of it outside, a lot of it's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite things on this SUV, and it works great. So I love the column paddle shifters because sometimes if you're having to turn the wheel a lot, you're having to kind of have at the bottom, you have your hand at the bottom to shift up if you need to shift mid-corner. Now, with this, I can have the wheel turned and I can just, I have a larger room of error here to shift up than this tiny little part here in the wheel. So this is so good, and the shape of it is awesome too, because down here you have kind of where your fingers can kind of rest if you're just kind of going in a straight line, or it just works really well. I love these paddles, the ergonomics of it. Now, the function of it is a different story, but we'll get to that soon. And so we have our gauge clusters, and there's nothing really Italian exciting about it. There's, you have these, gauge clusters. It's for what else is going on in the car. This is a little bland, and to change that gauge cluster in the middle, it's kind of cumbersome. You're having to go through multiple menus to get different views. So yeah, I would probably sacrifice cruise control. That's tough. It's just these buttons, you don't have anything to, just give me one button, or just give me a generic up, down, left, right, not A, B, start, but a pad on here to work with and go through any menus. And, if I need to put cruise control, make it a secondary button to then activate the cruise control and move up and down, that sort of thing. When we get into the main display, it's a fairly small display, but it's very clear, very bright. But the user interface is so difficult to navigate around. I was, right now I have the technical gauges up just to, for that flashiness of it. But even then, it's not as flashy or fun to see as the Mercedes ones. The Mercedes ones were a lot of fun. You could definitely see, different things. But this is a little on the bland side. Majority of the time, I was actually, and it is touchscreen, so you can navigate to it. But the majority of the time, I was literally just in CarPlay. I stayed in CarPlay. I didn't feel invited to navigate through the menus, and when I did, it was cumbersome. It's not the best user interface, and I was surprised by it. You have your different areas, but it just made no sense to kind of, why do we have to have like the your phone information there, which obviously goes there, but why do we have to have like all these weird panels that, and again, to change anything, I had to go into the settings. You have to go into these, like, all these different menus to really get anything, and it was things that overlap each other that were a little confusing to kind of get to. It's like, what's in convenience and comfort that is not in, passive safety, or why? So good thing here, convenient and comfort. Why isn't the doors and lock section in there, the cluster, infotainment? Like, you see, this is what I mean. It's like a lot of these things can be consolidated into a bigger menu, so you don't have all these, or sub menu, so you don't have all these different categories. But it wasn't very inviting. Like I said, a majority of the time, I just went ahead and I pressed my CarPlay, and I just literally just stayed in my CarPlay environment. It just, I don't know, I was expecting more of it. But moving on, we come down here to the AC controls. Very simple, nothing too difficult, which is always a welcome thing. Surprisingly, I didn't have to go into 5 different menus to get what I, to get it cooler or warmer. So we have that. And yeah, this one does come with heated seats. It comes with heated steering wheel, so you have those functions there. Then we come to one of my favorite things about this. Again, another favorite. But we have the cup holders, and we have the little opening in the middle. So there's a little opening, a little slit where you can just put your iPhone or just any phone in there. So when you have your CarPlay or Android Auto connected, they thought about it. They thought about, hey, let's give you a little space for your phone, which you'd think it'd be the simplest and like most obvious thing to do when you have a USB port right there, and you're gonna need to put your phone somewhere. But you'd be surprised how many manufacturers don't think about that. So the fact that we have this on this one is excellent. We put it, you put your phone there and you're good to go. You can control it with the touchscreen or with the input device down here. And when we get a little bit lower, we have your shifter, which is, it's an electronic shifter. So it's one of those where, it really just kind of stays in place, or looks like an electronic shifter, where you literally just press the P, very similar to the Land Rover that we test drove. It's just a little button to go into park, no matter what, basically what gear you're in, whether you're in drive, neutral, or reverse, you literally just press the button and it will go into park. And then you have the kind of backwards shifter, or really the way it should really be laid out if you think about it. But you push forward for reverse and back for drive. Yeah. That's the way it works. And then you can also slap it over to the left and you have manual mode, which in this, it is in fact true manual. It does not shift if you floor it, or even if you click that little button in the pedals. So it is a true manual. And then we have our electronic brake, and we have a nice little cool little area for you to put your little key in there. Should you have it not in your pocket, you have a nice little opening there. Then we come to the kind of input device, like I mentioned, and it's a little cumbersome. And again, it's cumbersome because of what the interface is, what the user interface is, where you're having to, like I said, go into different menus and just kind of, navigate through things. So it is a little, this is probably a good device if the user interface were great. So yeah, that's what, unfortunately, that's kind of the byproduct of what that system is. And then you have your driving mode. So you have your D, your N, and your A. And we've been pretty much on D the whole time. It's just their kind of race mode on there. Now, what's great about that is you can not only put it in a dynamic mode, or in that sort of race mode, but you can also go a little bit further if you want to have just the performance, but you want a softer ride. You can push the button in the middle and it's going to give you soft damper. So soft damper is active right now, or we can just tell it, what, just give me the full race mode, so to speak. But yeah, we have that. It's a nice little thing. Coming back a little bit further is definitely one of my top favorite things for this, which I was thoroughly impressed, and that's the wireless charger. So this has a wireless charger, but it's such a great design where it just kind of slides in here. It slides in here into the center console, and it has a little stop at the bottom, but it works so well. It works so well because you're at an angle where the contact of your phone and the wireless charger is going to be really good. I would say probably about a 45 degree angle. So that's good, because we've been in cars where the wireless charger, yeah, it's flat, and that's probably going to give you the most contact. But when you're moving around, your phone is doing this and it's losing the contact. So the fact that this is down here and it's got a little bit of a tight grip at the bottom, it kind of tapers down so that it holds it in place. So it's definitely a great thing. I love this. That's definitely a plus. And when I saw it, I was like, poof, right in there. So whoever's not charging with the USB or you know, manning the DJ booth, so to speak, they can, you know, just place their charger in here and basically charge their phone. Now, when we get into the space in the back, there's a fairly good amount of space. We don't have the kiddo seat in this one because we have two cars this week, so it's in the other one, and this one was mine for the week, so it's not in here, but it was fairly comfortable. The only thing is, when you're in the passenger can be a little cramped when you're putting the seat behind them. So if I were to do it again, probably in the middle, just so that, you know, because I was sitting in the middle, I was sitting on the passenger when my wife was driving this to test it out herself, but I wasn't really comfortable. My knees were were very close to the dashboard. So definitely, if you have a kiddo, middle's probably going to be the best seat. And then we have the trunk space. The trunk space is huge. It definitely is like we see these SUVs that are called coupes, these 4-door coupes. So it has that kind of open, not so a hatchback kind of gives you like a square storage space. This kind of gives you a wedge, which is nice because it's like having the square but adding a triangle, so you know, to give you more space. So it definitely has kind of a wedge storage area, and it's so good. It's such a great, huge amount of space. So it's a huge amount of space, and again, like I mentioned, one of my favorite things was, you know, the back seat. You have those buttons to really get those back seats down. Should you need to load something up, you don't have to open up the passenger side, and it's just those little things that really add up and give you a better car experience. So it definitely helps out with an everyday use of this SUV. So that little button is definitely a nice little thing, or it's kind of like a latch to give you more space in the back and put those seats down. Okay, now it's time for a little bit of fun, and we are going to put the performance gauges on just for some eye candy right there, if you guys can see that. And we're going to switch it over to manual mode. We're already in the D mode because, yeah, I mean, why else would you be in any other mode? So we have a 2.0 liter inline 4 turbocharged 280 horsepower going through an 8-speed automatic through this all-wheel drive system. Let me tell you, I have mixed feelings about this. I have mixed feelings about it because it can really go. It can definitely go, but there's a couple of things that are a little weird when it comes to the performance of this. The shifting, when you're in manual mode and you're shifting, whether it's, actually, let me see if it's, okay, so a couple of things. There's a bit of a delay. You know, I'm so confused right now. I am so confused. So what I'm trying to say is that when you're using the shifter in manual mode or the paddle shifters, when you press the button, it has a different reaction. I feel like there's a different reaction every time you go to shift up or down. Sometimes it's extremely fast, and other times it's a slightly delayed. So when you're taking off in first gear, you have to be a little bit early about it because it's a little bit delayed. But right now that I was in third, or actually I was in second, and I shift up to third, it was instant. I don't know. I mean, it would be the opposite. I want, you know, from first to second, I need, you know, those RPMs are gonna go really high and I want them to shift really fast. But it's doing the complete opposite. I don't understand. But yeah, that's one of the things that with this I'm a little confused about when I'm in manual mode and I'm shifting the gears myself. Like there, it's acting really fast, you know, and yeah, it's acting fast now. But again, it's weird how 1 and 2, you definitely, because I've had it hit the rev limiter because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't ready for that small delay. I thought, okay, I give it a little bit of delay, but it's a significant delay. But moving forward from that, the shift, once they hit, man, do they hit hard. This transmission is really like, okay, it's literally like dumping the clutch after every shift in the gear. So you feel it kind of, okay, it's like, cool, I grabbed another gear, let's take that one, you know, with us, and, you know, let's hit the red line again and give me another gear and another gear. So it definitely has that kind of jolt, which is nice. It's a nice feeling to it, especially when you're in that performance mode. And the engine doesn't sound half bad either. It's not a bad sounding engine. So it doesn't sound, even though it's only a 2.0, it doesn't sound like it's struggling, which is nice. Sometimes you hear like bigger engines trying to, you know, going through the RPM range, and they just don't have a good sound, or they sound like they're struggling. Like, you know, it's like, you know, I need help kind of situation. But not this. This is actually working really, really well. Now, when it comes to steering input, it actually works pretty well. I mean, it's not super heavy. I'd probably like it a little bit heavier, especially if you're changing dynamic mode, you know, if you're changing driving modes. You know, just give me a ratio that's a little bit stiffer, or yeah, just give me something, a different feel to the wheel. If it does have it, it's very, very tough to feel a difference. But you have the all-wheel drive, and with the big wheels and the, you know, big tires, the grip is there. The grip is really there. And this does not have the function of turning off traction control. So you cannot turn off traction control in this Alfa. I don't know if it's just a Stelvio thing, or if it's this trim, you know, do we have to shell out a lot of money to go higher in the trim and get get some traction control buttons off? But it's fine. I mean, it's only felt intrusive once or twice, really, and you know, we've been really test driving it. And the next thing is the brakes. The brakes are really good in this. That was one of the things that when my wife drove this and she was hitting the brakes, the feel of the pedal is so good. It's really, really good. It has a very meaty grabbing force, but it's not in the sense of like, you know, you're gonna eat the windshield kind of feel, but you can modulate the brake pedal to how much force you want it, and it works extremely well. That was one of my favorite things about this. Again, another favorite thing, but it's true. It really is true. Like the brake pedal worked excellent in this. I was really, really surprised at how well it really managed the brakes. But overall, I mean, the performance is great. I mean, the little 2.0 engine with the turbo and, you know, everything, as a package, it works fairly well. The only thing with this is, you know, I've driven the higher end model, the Quadrifoglio, and I know how that sounds. I know how that feels. You know, it's tough because you're gonna want to spend the money. I know it's more, but I would say, yeah, you know, definitely spend the money and go with the higher end. But this works great. This still works great. But when you've tasted the Wagyu steak, you know, a flank steak or lesser cut of a meat is fine. It's fine. It worked. Like I said, it's a good package. It's a good. What I'm trying to say is, it's a good package. Is there better? Yes, and it's its own better in the sense of there's higher trims in this that work really, really well. And definitely when I saw that I was getting this, I was excited, but a little bit let down because I was expecting, you know, just that raw power that we got in the other one, but it works very well. Well guys, there you have it. I had a blast in this thing. This was definitely one of my favorite SUVs to drive. Granted, there's some things I would change around with it, but overall it's a great little package. Not so little, it's a fairly big package, but it definitely was a lot of fun. And again, it had a long list of some of my favorite things. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the review, and remember, find the right gear.